Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you. It's the 24th of March. Spring's coming in slowly, but is coming. And that's good. It's good for the soul. Good for my soul. I'm assuming good for yours. God knows we need every little bit of uplift we can get. I was thinking, sitting here, waiting for the show to start, that all of the things that I've been sort of wringing my hands about can pretty much fit into this alliterative triad, and that is corruption, cruelty, capitulation. And so many of the stories that upset me, frighten me, fit into one or more of those general categories. And they bespeak the consequential times that we are living in. Cruelty, corruption, capitulation. And I spend a lot of time railing about all three, and that I will continue, I'm sure, but we've got to pledge, dedicate ourselves to doing more, to actively, in any way we can, however small. I think sometimes we fail to act because we think, oh, it's just me. It's a drop in the proverbial ocean. It has no impact. But if everyone always thought that way, no one would ever have gotten anywhere. No progress would ever have been made. It always starts with small steps and individual actions. Always. It creates a momentum. Anything that rouses us from inertia. And one of the things that Trump wants and is seeing a lot of success in doing right now is creating a sense of helplessness on our part. And we cannot allow it. We are never helpless. Ever. I just want us to keep that in mind. It's okay to become, angry, distressed, and all the kinds of emotions that we're enduring right now. But my God, we cannot allow ourselves to fall into despondency and helplessness, because that's what he wants. It's what the fire hose of chaos is all about. There is method to its madness, and it is to overwhelm his opponents and to make us feel helpless, powerless. So just keep that in mind. And when you feel yourselves falling into that state of surrender, don't allow it. Do not allow it. Just saying. Again, all any of us can do is sort of govern ourselves, right? Take care of ourselves. I was mentioning last week that I had read somewhere that people who study autocracies and the failures of democracies are watching events unfold here in the United States with astonishment, not because they haven't witnessed democracies succumb to autocracy, but because they've never seen one apparently falling so fast. Harvard political scientist, author of How Democracies Die, author of Competitive Authoritarianism, Stephen Levitsky. Honest to God, I've never seen anything like it. You look at these comparative cases in the 21st century, like Hungary, Poland, Turkey, and in a lot of respects, this is worse. These first 2 months have been much more aggressively authoritarian than any other comparable case I know of democratic backsliding. This is somebody who studies this phenomenon, has written about it in detail. And he's watching what Trump and the Republicans are doing and the capitulators are doing here with his mouth agape at the speed of it. He says, I cannot find a precedent. The zeal, these are his words again, with which they are engaging in increasingly open authoritarian behavior is unlike almost anything I've ever seen. I mean, Chavez in Venezuela, Orban in Hungary, Erdogan in Turkey, they hid it. They were more subtle. He's saying that Trump and these guys, and yes, we see it, are just openly doing it. And it is unprecedented. And it is astonishing. And it does scream out for action. We have a vice president now who said this. These are his words. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's power. That's our vice president speaking. That is a lie. It is throwing out our Constitution. Trump's borders are said. I don't care what the judges think. That defiance of our rule of law and the way you see these guys targeting the rule of law is blatantly telling us they intend to flout the law, to take over from the law. And how often in your life have you heard people say, we are a nation of laws? We've talked about it before. Courts don't have armies. What we have had in our history up until now are governments that almost always obey a judge's order, because there have always been impossible political costs if you don't. You see what happened to Richard Nixon. But Richard Nixon is a piker compared to these guys. So what is different? What is different is that you have an entire political party, the president's political party, that has abdicated, and that it is standing by as he flouts openly, daily, hourly, our rule of law. And the people who vote for him, we have been told time and time again that they love this aspect of him. It is what drew them to him. They see it as evidence of his strength. The fool. The reason presidents and others in the past have not dared is because the people would rise up and say, hey, no one is above the law. We are a nation of laws, and we, the people, rule here. The scholar, this guy who's watching this in astonishment, says if even a dozen Republicans had the courage to stand up to Trump, it would be a very different ballgame. Trump, Musk, Stephen Miller, all of them could not do this alone. They're doing it and able to do it because they have the full cooperation of the majority party in the Congress. So we are in a very bad place. And anyone who tries to tell you that people like him or people like me are a bunch of Cassandras, or a bunch of, Chicken Littles. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Do not buy it because it is very close to coming down. One of the things autocrats always do is there's the playbook, the autocratic playbook. All you have to do is look at Hitler, look at Erdogan, look at Chavez. Just look what they've historically done. Trump is following the book, only doing it with more speed than any of them did. You go after the courts, the judges, the legal system. You got to get control of it. Well, he already has control, total control, and his lackeys in place in the Justice Department, at the FBI. Right? Yeah. He has control of the apparatus of the entire government, even as he proceeds to destroy it. You intimidate those who dare to take you on. So we see he has now actively targeted the major law firms that typically have gone after him, that have dared to go after the president and sue the government for what is clearly often illegal conduct. He has sat by while judges and their families are targeted, are threatened. He has called for the impeachment of judges simply because he doesn't like their decisions. These are the acts of a wannabe Hitler. He's rounding up now people with no evidence of them having committed a crime, people who have expressed opinions that he does not agree with, and some of them have been detained and who knows what. Cruelty, corruption, and capitulation. The capitulation of the law firm, the big law firm that he went after. And he was able to threaten them in a way that would have cost them, God knows, millions upon millions upon millions of dollars in business. He has the ability to, do that, and everybody knows he will. But they folded. They didn't stand and fight. They capitulated. And he shook them down because that's what he does. And so this law firm now will do $40 million worth of free legal work for him so that he'll back off. But you see, come on, guys. How? We've watched Trump. for long enough that we know that if you capitulate to him, if you cave, it empowers him and he will keep coming at you. It doesn't make you safe. It makes you less safe and every other law firm and lawyer less safe. The capitulators in corporate America, in the Congress, in these fancy dancy law firms are ensuring the destruction of our democracy. If he can go after a powerhouse law firm, which this one was, this Paul Weiss, and get them to cave, then what's any other law firm supposed to be thinking? Well, I'll tell you what they're thinking because I've seen how much cowardice is afoot. We'll just keep our heads down. Okay, so we're not going to take certain cases. There's no reason why we have to be the ones who take on a case of somebody who's got a grievance against these thugs. I can't even keep up with the cases now of people coming into the United States or trying to, being detained. Regular people. This is like the America, that we knew all our lives. That America is gone. It's already gone. Replaced by this terrifying rogue superpower that sides with autocrats, that threatens friends and neighbors, that detains people legally trying to enter our country. Says here the Trump administration has opened a new phase in its immigration agenda, one that goes well beyond the mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. Border officials are using more aggressive tactics, prompting American allies like Germany to update their travel advisories. We now are a country that other countries tell their people, and our former allies tell their people, European countries, Canadians, are told to be very careful if they're intending to come to this rogue nation. They're targeting legal immigrants who have expressed disagreement with some of the actions of this country, which, of course, is what America has always been about: free speech. Immigration agents wearing masks arrested a Georgetown University professor outside his home in Virginia. They have detained 2 German tourists for weeks when they tried to enter the country legally. This is America. They filled up a plane with a whole bunch of people the other day and sent them not to El Salvador. They sent them off to Panama. These are people from a million different countries. Europe, Asia, Africa, South America. They're from all over the place. And we dumped them in Panama, where they know nobody, and Panama doesn't want them. They're stranded there now. Here's a few of them. A 34-year-old man who served as an officer in the Afghan army, worked alongside U.S. Special Forces, and after the Taliban took over, he ran for his life. He fled to Pakistan. He then got into Iran, and then he made it to Brazil, and then he walked through South and Central America. This man from halfway around the world who'd stood with us in Afghanistan trying to get into this country. He got in and was immediately arrested, jailed, and he's now in Panama with nowhere to go. On that plane with him were also a lot of Christians from Iran, where it's not real easy being a Christian. And many of them have fled because they are in fear. Also, several Afghanistani women were on that plane. All of these people are now in Panama, not knowing what to do. And here's another of this one plane load, a 19-year-old girl who had come from Afghanistan with her 5 younger siblings and her parents. They had crossed the border into the U.S. Her parents and her younger siblings were allowed, I can't imagine why, to stay. She, a 19-year-old girl, was peeled off from her parents and her brothers and sisters and stuck on this plane. And she's now in Panama by herself. Do you know how many stories there are like this? You can't keep up. And the only reason we know any of them is because there are still some reporters willing, brave enough to tell us what's going on. The kidney transplant specialist, the doctor, trying to return to the U.S. after visiting her family. She had a valid visa. She had everything she needed. If we were following the law to allow her in and back to her practice here, and she was detained and deported because, well, we didn't like her politics either. Now, I know that this crowd wouldn't like my politics. So, how long is it going to be before American citizens whose politics they don't like. Maybe make the mistake of traveling out of the country and then try to get back in to come home. I don't know. Or maybe you don't even have to travel out of the country. Maybe the masked jack boots will just show up at your door one day because they're looking through your emails and they're seeing and they're listening to your podcast, hearing what you said. Hmm. Okay, I'll calm down for a second. Although, a few things. This made me laugh. Dark humor. This made me laugh. My son sent it to me. It was a tweet. Republicans are like the school shooters, and Democrats are like the Uvalde cops. I think that about sums it up. Okay, so here's the thing. We have got to be wise and brave. That's what I think. And I don't pretend to know what the hell to do. But one thing I do know is that you have to live your life, take pleasure in your friends and family and the beauty of nature, all the things that are still there for us. You have got to gobble up and appreciate. Someone wrote a poem along those lines, and I'll share it with you. I'm not ever very good at poetry, but I got the gist of this, and I'm just going to share it with you. It's a woman sitting with her friend, side by side on a log by the bay, sunlight, unleashed dogs prancing through surf, almost exploding out of their skins with perfect happiness. Dogs who don't know about fired park rangers or canceled health research or tariff wars or the suicide hotline for veterans getting defunded or we've listed horror upon horror to each other for weeks now, and it does no good. So instead, I tell her how I held a 2-day-old baby in my arms, inhaling him like a fresh baked loaf of bread, then watched as a sneeze erupted through his body like a tiny volcano. It was the look of pure astonishment on his face, as if he were Adam in the Garden of Eden making his debut at Chew, as if it were the first sneeze that ever blew that got me. She tells me how her dog once farted so loudly he startled himself and fell off the bed where he'd been lolling. And then the two of us start to laugh so hard we almost fall off our own log. And this is our resistance today. Remembering original innocence. And they can't take it away from us. Though they ban our very existence, though they slash our rights to ribbons, we will have our mirth and our birthright gladness. Long after every unsold Tesla has vaporized and Earth has closed over even the names of these temporary tyrants, somewhere, some women like us will be sitting side by side, facing the water, telling human stories, and laughing still. That is by Alison Luterman. And I think it's perfect. Obituary of the day. I love this guy. Well, the love of all heavyweight champions, that my love is Muhammad Ali. No doubt about that. But George Foreman, I mean, what a wonderful character. And now, of course, I can't find his obit. I was unhappy to see that he met his end, but he lived a long life. Well, I can't find the obit. I'll just I don't know. I mean, you know, his career was astonishing, really, for its longevity. I mean, my God, he was the heavyweight champ as a young guy, and then he retired. I think when he was 26 or 28, and but he ended up going back, and he ended up fighting what in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and he regained his heavyweight championship when he was 45 years old. That's astonishing. He beat a guy, Michael Moore, right, who was like half his age. I kid you not. What an amazing boxer. And he had a rough start. He admits he was a thug, but he turned himself around. And then he had a family. He had 5 sons and I think 6 daughters or something. And of course, the sons were all named George, which is too funny. George Jr., George the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. Did I come up with them all? I don't know. And I mean, what a riot. Um, and then, of course, he became a gazillionaire with his grill. So he turned out to be a savvy businessman and a great because he was so charming. So anyway, I just have to say one of the things where I get both these guys together is that amazing documentary. Why am I blanking on the name of it? Of the Muhammad Ali George Foreman fight in Africa, where the Rumble in the Jungle, where it was Ali who was trying to make a comeback at that point and was definitely the underdog. And he used his rope-a-dope tactic, and it was a brave tactic, and it worked. No one had expected Ali to win, and he did. And I that's such a great documentary, but the part I hate about it is how Ali goes after Foreman. Not in the ring, but you know, making fun of him and as only Ali could, making him out to be a bad guy. I felt for him. But George Foreman, extraordinary life. I think he was 75 or 6. He was younger than me, I know that. May God bless. Okay, let's see what else I got here for you. First of all, let me see if you got anything for me. Um, okay, got Roger. Do you get requests from the DNC for money? Do they really need it? Do they deserve it? They lost to Trump. They lost Congress. They lost the Supreme Court. I select delete and report junk several times a day. Doesn't seem to do any good. They keep coming. What do you think and do when these requests come on your phone? I have to tell you, increasingly, I do exactly as you're doing. Because I don't want to just throw my money at groups that have shown that they don't know how to use it. Oh, thank you, Milton. When We Were Kings was the title of the documentary. Yeah. Wow, it's just wondrous, wondrous documentary. On the other hand, I have recently given money to somebody who was asking for it, and that is the woman. Her name is Deborah Cornelius, I think, who is running for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And of course, since I gave her money, I get something from her every day. And I believe me, I gave her enough that that's it for me. But yeah, they keep on coming at you. It drives you nuts. But since I brought that up, that election is in a week. That election, Trump and Musk are focused on. Musk is doing what he did here and in a few other battleground states. He's literally handing out money, hundreds of dollars at a pop, to Wisconsin voters who sign some idiotic petition and who essentially pledge to vote for their candidate. They're trying to turn the Wisconsin Supreme Court so that they can redistrict the congressional districts again, gerrymander it, and keep the Republican majority in the House. Musk is also after him because of a Wisconsin law he wants overturned that prevents uh, car companies from owning dealerships. I don't know why that's a thing, but it is, and it has prevented him from opening some Tesla dealerships there. So he's got, an axe to grind there. But this is already way, way, way the most expensive Supreme Court race in American history. And we file this story under corruption. Obviously. And I don't know. They've got so much money in there that I don't know if the Wisconsin, generally speaking, Republicans in Wisconsin have not come out for these sort of off years, court elections, nothing major on the ballot, but because of all the publicity and because of Musk and Trump's megaphones and money, they're trying to get the Republicans in Wisconsin to come out. And my money to her was simply to try to help the Democrats get their voters out. It's frightening. It's just frightening and ugly as all get out. Excuse me, I'll take a swig. Okay, what else we got? Debbie says, your son's tweet, I think it should say Republicans instead of Democrats. The Republicans and the law firms and the newspapers are the Uvalde. Cops are the ones afraid to take him on. Well, yeah, but, they were trying to do the Republican-Democratic thing, and they were just focusing on the Democrats' seeming paralysis, which is pretty evident right now in general. The party's paralysis. But I hear you, of course. It's not there's not an equivalence. You have one party that has literally joined the attempt to destroy the democracy, and that is not the Democrats. But there were two really, really good pieces in Sunday's New York Times about Democrats and maybe what they can do. And I'm going to share a little of it with you. One was by Ben Rhodes, and he said this, which I think I pretty much started with too. You are meant to feel powerless. That is what a strong man wants, to make you feel as if there's nothing you can do to stop him. And then he goes on to say, and he's sorry to say it, but the hard truth, he says, is that the Democratic Party, in its current form, cannot lead the opposition that is required. So, Roger, that does give you the answer that you are doing the right thing. Don't give them the money. They have not earned it. He goes on to say, the party has lost touch with an electorate that sees it as emblematic of what they hate about politics: a polarized culture, overseas commitments, and an economy where it doesn't feel as if they're making enough to get by. Now, you can argue, well, but that's because blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. What we've learned is what only matters is what the people perceive, what they think. And you can't scream at them, you're not thinking right. You got to deal with what they think and feel. And he puts it this way: we, the Democrats, are living through a reckoning with the cost of defending the status quo. And he said, if we are waiting for the MAGA movement to collapse under the weight of its own absurdities and contradictions, or if we're waiting for a recession to wake up his base, biding your time works only if the normal rules of political gravity are still being applied, and they are not anymore. And he says we Democrats need to focus on one or two things. That's it. And his first thing is corruption. He says Trump and his billionaires are redistributing our wealth and power in ways that are going to harm most Americans. They offer evidence of this every single day. This is perhaps a starting point. He says the most promising signs have been in the actions of ordinary people. Yes, protesting at Republican town halls and the enormous crowds that have turned out for Bernie Sanders and AOC. Something is stirring. And to succeed, the opposition must become a movement out in the country rather than the party trying to come up with some formula in Washington. So, yeah, the answer is not the DNC. It is not. We are the answer. We need to keep on talking, showing up, showing the harms that are happening to everyday people. Not sticking up for bureaucracies or the prerogatives of a loathed institution like the Congress. He says protests at shuttered facilities in your community, not at some agency in DC. Those have a chance of breaking through. Make noise. Hold town halls where Republicans are afraid to. Boycott the businesses of any of these billionaires. File lawsuits, sign petitions, organize communities, including the red ones. Support people who get arrested. Create a culture of defiance. This is an approach that sidesteps purity tests and some agreed upon, always call them a catechism. He talked to a bunch of people who have lived through autocratic takeovers in other countries, and he got advice from them. And one is, it's easier to invite someone into a movement if all you both must agree on is one issue, not a dozen. One issue. Keep it simple. The thing that makes Trump powerful now is he's thinking nothing can stop him. But if we get ourselves one victory, you get that one win, and people start to feel that, maybe we've got power, and we did this together. She talks about this senator from New Jersey, Andy Kim. He's the kind of person we need. He was not a politician. His congressman voted to repeal Obamacare in 2017, and he said to himself, that's an outrage. I'm going to run against him. And he won. And he connected with voters because he sounded like a regular person. And what is he focused on? He focused on corruption and money in election campaigns. And then when Senator Menendez in New Jersey got himself in legal trouble, Kim, just into the Congress, decides he'll run against him, primary, another Democrat. The party, the Democratic Party, no, they didn't want this guy. He wasn't their choice. They chose a donor who also happened to be the wife of the governor. And Kim, coming not with the help of the party, beat her. And he's now the senator from New Jersey. And New Jersey voters know that he's not a kept man, not by donors, not by the party, and that he will fight for them. Those are the people we need. We need more people like that. And he comes up with one more. There was one more piece. And this is about a guy I had not heard of. He's a new congressman from Colorado who also is not the norm. His name is Jason Crow. And he knocked a Republican out and became the first Democrat to win in this district in a long, long time. Comes from a working class family, paid his way through college by working construction, and joined the National Guard and ROTC, became a paratrooper, an Army Ranger, Bronze Star, 3 combat duties, and as I said, unseated a 5-term Republican congressman. And Jason Crow says this, a lot of communities divide the world between when you shower before work or after work. And many who shower later, the working class folks living paycheck to paycheck, they've tuned us out. That's the Democrats, tuned us out. They're not listening to us because they don't believe we respect them or even see them. And that is the truth. This is a guy who took on Nancy Pelosi as soon as he got on. She, by the way, thinks he's great. He took on Joe Biden when he was the president because he thought he shouldn't run, and he was right. James Carville says of him, he's exactly what we need. He's not coastal. He went to a state school, 75th Ranger Battalion. He's effective. He's articulate. Honestly, what is there not to like? And this guy says, people, if you talk to them, they predominantly support Democratic policies. What turns them off is our identity crap and our cultural issues. And if we don't see that, God help us. He says the first thing Democrats have to do is somehow dispel this notion, which I'm afraid is true, that we are an elitist party, because that is the portrayal that we put forward. And we got to stop it. We got to get back to regular folks and their concerns, not the university set's concerns. We see where that got us. Nowhere. It got us in the wilderness. In order to win in a democracy, assuming we're going to ever have it, you need to appeal to the most people. Most people don't have college degrees. He goes on to say this, I'm not going to allow myself to give in to the emotion of any one issue, because there's going to be a lot over the next 3 years. There's no quick or easy road out of the wilderness for the Democrats. The secret is there is no secret. You just have to rebuild trust one voter at a time. And that is done through individual leadership, through town halls, through engagement, by showing up and connecting with people, even if they take their showers after they get home from work. Okay? I would argue that Chris Deluzio here is another Democrat to keep an eye on. Whatever. Okay, guys, that's it for me. God, I didn't get to half the stuff I wanted to talk about. Anyway, thank you for being here. I'll be back tomorrow with my kid sister Susan in tow. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.